What up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Nerd Gen Report. I'm your host, Pablo, and joining me, as always, is Mr. Brian Schultz. The Void. One of our favorite episodes that we like to do because we get to talk about stuff that not a lot of people are paying attention to, and they should, because these are big deals. Heman. The excitement is not, I think, at its peak yet.
Oh, no.
But it's rising. It is rising, Brian. Why? Because the stuff that we were talking about and have been talking about, now the big dogs are talking about it. Campia, Christian Harloff, Roka, all of these guys are starting to talk about He-Man. In terms of what they're talking about, there is consistency there, Brian.
True.
That we have to pay attention to. Jim Carrey has been... Is this official, Brian?
I think he's in talks.
This is a big deal. We've talked about it before on our show. We talked about the potential, the possibility of the idea of what a Jetsons movie was like after seeing Fantastic Four. And now you get an actor who fits perfectly, Brian, because of who he is capable of becoming. A George Jetson possibility of Jim Carrey playing. I am there. End of the line for Tron. I saw it, some of it. And whatever I saw, I enjoyed. But Disney has said, we've had enough. I don't have the money to spend or want to spend the money on something that doesn't give me back any, what, Brian? Business. Good business. So they said enough. Chris Nolan rides for The Rock after his viewing of Smashing Machine and gives him high praises. What does this look like? Does this mean? What possible is he, Brian, following Arnold's path after so many conversations that you and I have had of what The Rock should do or should be doing in order to earn the praise that he so much desires? You know what I think about when I think about The Rock at his heyday, Brian? Imagine going every night out to wrestling and hearing your name chanted by thousands in an arena, Brian. To hear your name being that is an adrenaline rush, Brian, that he got used to. Splinter Cell. We'll talk briefly about that. I saw the entirety of it. I had to rewatch it a couple of times because I was distracted, but I did watch it a couple of times, and I'll give you my take. And then we'll pay homage to a legend. I think his work resulted in our first look and perhaps the ingredients that provided the excitement to see what we were going to see in the theaters. So we'll talk about that. And also we'll throw in there and the Andy Muschietti responds to his backlash. He-Man, Brian, what is the buzz? Because we've been hearing this buzz for a while, and if you hear our conversations, we are impressed by each update that we get, the lengths of which these individuals are going to recreate a version of He-Man that is fun and exciting to see. I'm talking about when you saw Pandora in the theaters, I imagine Eternia should look like this.
No, yeah.
So what are they going to give us? Everyone seems to be excited, Brian. What's going on?
So it's Mattel talking. So yeah, so it is going to be a slanted viewpoint, but it's an important reference point. Mattel Studios president Robbie Brenner was in Cannes this week, and she talked about the upcoming live-action Masters of the Universe film directed by Travis Knight. She said she visited the set, and I think she even, and she says she's seen the movie, the first cut.
Oh, wow.
First quote, I went and visited the set, and out of all the movies I've worked on in my entire life, even Barbie, this was the biggest. It was massive. We took over 2 or 3 sound stages, 8 backlots, and there are characters walking around that are literally 8 feet tall. There are these crazy characters in this movie. I just actually got to see a director's cut of it. That will be our second theatrical movie, and I think it's a perfect complement to Barbie. I think people are going to be so excited. It is so much fun and feels so different, end quote.
The message is consistent, Brian. From what you heard coming out of CinemaCon, in terms of what people witnessed, in terms of what they saw, each derivative of that first experience has been a positive interpretation. And I look at the words from CinemaCon because you get various viewpoints. It's not, like you said, Robbie Brenner, the head of Mattel, the president of Mattel, is not, she's in the same, I guess, level as those individuals, like a David Zaslav, right? For what is worth, James Gunn speaking about what he thinks is dope and what he's seen. And then when we look at it, it's like, oh, it was whack, right? Seeing, she saw it, that's, I mean, she's a president, but for her to say what she's saying, I don't know what her aesthetic is in terms of movie. I would have to look to see what sort of words she's used to describe other material. But again, what she's talking about in terms of describing her experience when she saw this film is consistent with what the little bit that people saw at CinemaCon.
Again, the consistency that Pablo's talking about, that's very surprising in some ways, is the practicality of this. When you hear her say there's these 8-foot costume characters on set, right? That's when you think of Eternia, it has to be fantastical. You can't be staring at it thinking it's like, oh, that looks like it could happen in LA or in New Zealand. Like, it has to look like it's a place you've never been before. And if you watch the cartoon, the characters are enormous, right? They are big. They're all like built like Arnold. And again, you're not going to do that in a movie, but the point is, like, Beast Man should not be 3 feet tall, right? He's got to look fearsome and formidable to defeat some of the silly that's inherent to the characters. So we've seen with the set construction of the entrance to Castle Grayskull, which, as we know, not only as a movie location, but is also synonymous with where he draws the backdrop for where he draws the sword and says the line. Like, it's always shown like he's in the entrance of that. So they built that, right? Snake Mountain, they built an exterior and a gate for Snake Mountain. So that's what gives you hope, right? That they're taking this seriously. And I would say, like, again, if you're not familiar with Travis Knight's work, and he's been nominated for an Oscar and animated with Kubo and the Two Strings, but if you want to believe in this project, and the first time I became interested was when because this project has been in development for over a decade. A version of a He-Man film has been kicking around. The rights have been sold multiple times before it landed at Amazon. But when Travis Knight signed was the first time I paid attention. And if you aren't familiar with his work, but you want to believe in this project, watch the opening scene of Bumblebee, because he takes you to Cybertron and you see every Generation 1 Transformer toy you ever cared about drawn, animated, and brought to life the way they're supposed to be. It's the only time it's been done. I still remember in that little scene when Soundwave pops up and he sounds like Soundwave and he looks like Soundwave. And that was my favorite Decepticon growing up. And I was like, he ain't no freaking satellite. That's what he's supposed to be. Travis Knight bringing that approach and understanding of 80s IP to this and trying to make it into something relevant. And as Mattel is saying, if they view it, listen, nobody thought Barbie was going to be a $1.3 billion box office. And I'm not saying He-Man's going to be able to do that, because I don't think He-Man has the same connectivity through time that Barbie dolls have had. But they clearly, we talk about pillars, they clearly see this as a pillar to what they want to do with some of their different toys and IP. And that's exciting. It just means they care about it and they take it seriously and they're taking their best shot at it. This is not a joke to anyone involved. And when we see the first teaser, now we're just bracing for hopefully they don't give away too much, but we're hoping the feels will be there and the vibes will be there to people to get excited. And this is planted in June of 26, man. They're putting it in the summer season.
Now, the monkey wrench, the possible monkey wrench in all of this. Jared Leto is Skeletor. I don't deny his ability to transform and be an actor is how far he takes it, and is he willing to hear the visionary behind all of this, his take or his vision for this character? That we have to wait and see. But if he is Skeletor from beginning to end, hooray. That's a win. Because the performance is going to be the performance, right? He's going to perform. I have no doubt about that, I think. You know what I'm saying? I don't believe he's not going to do a good job. It's Skeletor, yo. Skeletor is, you know.
Can I ask you a question about that? How much does Skeletor's voice mean to you? I mean, he has a very nasal, in the animated, a very nasal, grating voice. Frank Langella didn't bother doing that in the Dolph Lundgren movie. He delivers more of like almost a Shakespearean, over the top, type of villainous voice. Like, how much does do you want Skeletor to sound like he sounded in the animated show?
What I remember of Skeletor is obviously he's evil or whatever, but he's always degrading his subjects, the people that he's in charge of. He's always degrading them and telling, like he's almost like Gordon Ramsay. You know what I'm saying? So in terms of, he goes in on them. The voice doesn't have to be to the T. I want to see what he does with it.
My point is, I found it, of the 80s animated villainous voices, I found that one to be the most annoying, if I was being honest, right? You're too late, He-Man. Like, it's just like, it's tough, man. It's a tough listen. Whereas, to comparison, right? Whereas, like, the voice of Prince Lotor, the voice of Mum-Ra, the voice of Megatron, like, or even the voices of, like, I don't know, pick your G.I. Joe top villain, right? Serpentor or Cobra Commander or whatever. Like, and honestly, some of these were the same actor. Like Cobra Commander is the same actor at Starscream, right? Just because you don't know that.
Yeah, you can hear it. You can
Absolutely.
hear it.
So sometimes it is the same guy doing the same voice. But the Skeletor one, to me, when you look back on it, when you play it now, it's like, oh, that's a tough. I don't know if I want Jared Leto mimicking that. He may have to find his own lane on that.
Yeah. That's what I wanted to say. He should definitely play with it and find something new, because I know you're going accurate. It looks like you.
Well, we know that he's going to make everyone call him Skeletor made everyone call him Skeletor on set. I'm sure he did some crazy method stuff because he always does. And I will say this movie will come at a time. Now, he's already shot it, right? So to be clear, he's already shot the part. He needs this movie, man. We're going to talk about it in a second, like in a different part of this show. He needs a hit in the worst way. So his forays into franchise filmmaking have not gone well. And this is a little different because he's not the be-all, end-all of the project, but he needs a performance and a box office reaction to this film to rehabilitate his career.
Listen, if we see Jared Leto's face in this, then we saw it because he wanted us to see it. And that's it. We don't need a flashback of Skeletor.
Because we know that this story is like it's almost Matrix style, transporting us into Eternia, but we're going to start on Earth. We're going to start in modern day. You are 1,000% correct. It's one thing to do that with Prince Adam in a pink dress shirt and then transport him. If we see some humanized version of Skeletor that we're then going to see in Eternia, that's a no, sir.
No, we don't need to see. We need to see the true Skeletor for what we remember and what was done with Skeletor. That's all we saw him as. This evil dude trying to get to rule Eternia.
Yeah.
and it was all about the plans he had on trying. Every episode was a plan. Yep. I gotta get this, I gotta get that. It was the Thanos quest, until he achieved it, and then for Heman did some amazing stuff barehanded. You know what I'm saying? It was the most powerful man in the universe. He was able to get it done, and that was that. Obviously, this is a movie, so this plan of his is going to be drawn out. Along the way is these other things that are going to be happening. It's going to be the view. It's going to be all of this, Brian. It's going to be interesting to see what this looks like. And if we come out of it, I think I'd be happy because, again, Tron, we saw it. I saw it, and I was there for all the action sequences and stuff like that. The story was was pretty much, whatever, but there was still some good characters. It was a good execution. But if He-Man is that, I'm happy with that result. Because if it doesn't look good, and if it is ridiculous, and we're laughing instead of being excited for the awesomeness that it could possibly show us, Brian, because that I have the power scene has to be immaculate. That has to be Avengers Assemble right there, and they have to make it sound. That's what I'm saying. Tron, the sound in Tron is you could feel it, yo. You could feel it, and that's what He-Man has to be in order to be successful. So, but if Jared Leto throws a monkey wrench and we see Jared Leto just to see his performance, then I don't know.
Let's do Tron.
So
you could pick the thing I've enjoyed about Tron not hitting at the box office is that the Tron lingo has already provided us with all these ways to make fun of that, right? So every story has either said Tron has been derezzed or end of line, which is exactly what they say in the films. The movie did not do well. So as we talked about on our review show, 33 million domestic, 60 million worldwide, well below the projected. The production budget's 180. The young male target core demographic was a no-show. Didn't care. And Hollywood Reporter is reporting that Disney is likely to retire the franchise from the big screen. And then on top of that, Hollywood is done with Jared Leto as a leading man. Hence why I say he needs Skeletor to hit. If you think about his forays into IP, his turn as the Joker is the only really forgettable one that didn't hit. Right? I think about it, right? It's like Nicholson Joker, nominated for an Oscar. Ledger Joker wins an Oscar. Phoenix Joker wins an Oscar. Leto Joker didn't matter. He's the only one, right? And so that's not a good look. Then he frontlines Morbius, right? Ill-fated, bomb. And now this.
If you think about, you bring up a good point. If you think about all those names that ever played the Joker, even Cesar Romero, you can't ignore that they all had their distinct version of the Joker that was well regarded. His was forgettable. Although they still have his fans. You still have those that say that wasn't the true representation of the vision that who was the director of
well, it's David Ayer, but you also have to say this is one where Zack Snyder was involved because we see Leto in the Justice League Flash so there's some collaboration, right? Those two are clearly talking about what they want this Joker to be like, and like I said, it gets caught up a little bit in the universe falling apart, But the reality is he doesn't steal scenes in Suicide Squad either.
No.
So it's like, again, if you're doing, to your point, if you're doing live action Jokers and you don't have Jared Leto last, then I can't take your argument seriously. It's just, that's what I mean. It's like he needs Skeletor to be what he thought the Joker was going to be.
I say often, I think to myself, I heard there's this specific celebrity that likes cornflakes, milk, and ketchup. If you like that, yo, that's you. But you can't convince me that it's good. Or you can't convince me even to try it. It doesn't sound appetizing. No thanks. I don't need to try it to already know that I'm not going to like it.
The Tron story also really savages Leto because the writer of the movie says that the first iteration of the script was a very different movie, but that once Leto came aboard as the producer, he reframed the narrative so that his Ares character would become the protagonist and totally changed the film. And now that the film is bombed, the writer's kind of saying, well, look what happened. And then there's a quote in this article from Hollywood Reporter where a unnamed talent manager partner says, quote, in a world where Michael Fassbender, Ewan McGregor, and Benedict Cumberbatch are having a hard time getting lead roles, why would you even go to a person who can't open a movie and who has question marks around him as a person, end quote. I mean, that's an assassination right there. As I said, he desperately needs Masters of the Universe to hit and for him to be regarded as a strong point of that film.
This is one of those situations where, like in The Flash, you couldn't avoid it. You had to show this dude. Now you have an opportunity not to show this dude and just show the character, Skeletor. Don't do a flashback with this dude. If you have it, cut it. Erase the connectivity.
It's about connection. It's all about connections.
Don't do no flashback. Anything else, Brian?
No, now you want to move on to, speaking of, talked about Leto as leading man struggling in Hollywood, but another leading man in Hollywood got a significant boost this week from an unexpected source.
Yes. So The Rock got a shout out from Chris Nolan for his performance in Smashing Machine as the lead star in that film. This is perhaps, although not verified or confirmed, or even perhaps even rumored, but perhaps this is the idea that they will be working together on a project, or Chris Nolan has a part, for him in a movie. What does this mean, Brian?
Well, let's give you the quote. So Chris Nolan went on, this is the official Directors Guild Association podcast, of which Christopher Nolan was recently elected president. He was on a podcast with Benny Safdie, the director of The Smashing Machine. And Nolan commented, having seen the movie, about Dwayne Johnson, quote, I think it's an incredible performance. I don't think you'll see a better performance this year or most other years, end quote. I said Dwayne Johnson doesn't deserve to be nominated for an Oscar, to which Chris Nolan says, I know more about movies than you ever will, and this not only should be nominated, he's saying he should win, that he's the best performance of the year and a best performance in many years.
I'll refer back to your statement when we talked about this in our review show of the movie, when you stated that in terms of acting, what you're being asked to do from someone who is the living embodiment of who he is, and for you to be able to transform and pull it off, that it moves you to make you actually believe that what you're watching is not The Rock. You're watching who he is becoming or who he has become. Here's the example here. This is this guy. This is his life. This is what he lived through. And this is The Rock, and performing, to become this person. I think that is the praise that he is sharing with The Rock.
And Nolan says about the movie to Safdie, "Congratulations on the movie. It's really a remarkable and radical piece of work that will be understood more and more over time." End quote. That's it. The comment about The Rock's performance, why I think it's notable. Nolan doesn't have to say that. Even on an interview with Benny Safdie, he doesn't have to say it that way. There's no incentive there. There's no like, hey, he's hyping for this project, and you have to biggin him up. Like, he doesn't need to offer that, and he chooses to. So there probably is a truth in that of his own experience watching Dwayne Johnson inhabit Mark Kerr. But when I read it, it immediately led me to, does that mean there's a line of communication open between Nolan's camp and The Rock's camp about trying to do something? And I immediately started thinking about, I'd love your take on this, like, of the Nolan styles and genres that we've seen through the years, what do you think would be like the best type of movie for him to bring Dwayne Johnson into in a way that would really be, I mean, with Nolan, he's pretty much box office gold no matter what, but like a way that would actually elevate The Rock as performer and maybe lead him to be thought of in a different manner than we think of him now?
For me, Nolan is the type of work that he has done is usually, you have your star, but this is usually the success of the movie is based on the ensemble that he has put together. I think he would be, and I think this has always been the case for The Rock. Although he's had some moments where I think he did do a good job as an actor in some of the first movies that he put out. But he would work better within an ensemble with a specific character trait to be remembered, and then build from there. I don't necessarily think he needs to be the star. I don't know if it'll work because of the connection that people have, or the sentiment that they have now towards The Rock in his movies, and when he stars in them. Are we seeing The Rock? Are we seeing the performance? I think he will be better working with as a supporting actor in an ensemble cast. I think that works best for him instead of him
That's
being
an
the
interesting
star.
take, that you would actually have him be, because my thought was actually the most logical fit would be his version of Inception. That was my like reaction, where it's like Nolan worked with Leo and it was more of a blockbuster type of film than Leo had ever really been associated with since Titanic. But it very much, to your point, was an ensemble, right? I mean, you got Tom Hardy, you got Joseph Gordon-Levitt, you've got Cillian Murphy. Like, you have all these great actors in there. And Leo's not really flexing maximum Leo character actor in that role. He's definitely just being more like handsome leading man, and in this case, action star. So that to me felt like the most logical fit, is like Chris Nolan returns to sci-fi, which is always his bread and butter, comes up with some mind-bending concept and puts Dwayne Johnson in the center of it. Like, I was almost thinking like Chris Nolan would not do this, but like I was also thinking about like Total Recall. It would be like a Chris Nolan version of Total Recall with The Rock finally playing like the Doug Quaid type. And I know they remade that. I'm not saying that, but you get my point. A creative sci-fi vehicle for Dwayne Johnson to kind of be enough of the blockbuster Dwayne Johnson that he is recognizable, but then be doing a few other things, like playing on those Smashing Machine strings of like, hey, he's got a little more range to him, giving the character a little more depth and a little more human aspect, and kind of seeing where that leads. Again, we are completely speculating. I'm simply taking the Nolan quote out of nowhere and sort of saying like, this guy does not make idle comments. What's really going on here? And I'm speculating that they might work together, and I would be thrilled to see what that partnership could lead to, because as you say, it would definitely mark. I mean, Chris Nolan's a guy who has complete control over his projects. He has final cut. Dwayne Johnson would have minimal say in the actual production, right? He would be a member of the cast, even if he was the lead. I think it would be a great career move, and I'd be interested to see what they come up with if it is something down the line we get.
I think Chris Nolan is and I think one of the reasons why he has such great relationship with his actors is because he's able to listen. He's able to have a conversation with his actors to discover who this. I'm sure Nolan has his idea, but he's willing to let people rock. But ultimately, he's gonna direct what he wants and get what he wants, and you know what I'm saying. So, I think that's the sort of relationship that you sort of have to have. And Chris Nolan has been good at it for quite some time already. So, and everyone wants the opportunity to work with him. So it'll definitely be a collaboration. It'll be, I think, a learning experience for The Rock too, in terms of how you need to behave on set. You got to be there on time. You can't waste time because this guy works quickly. So none of the shenanigans that you've had rumored being spoken of you can occur here. So let's see. Splinter Cell. I've seen the entirety of the show. Brian, you've seen half of it.
Seen the first half, yeah.
Brian has read a Reddits of what people have given their perspective and critique on the show. I haven't heard him. I'm interested in hearing what they have to what some of the critiques Brian read, but mine's is I would have much rather preferred seeing him in not so old. I would have preferred him being more of his prime and going on missions and in that era of his time and not the late stage of his life. Because in this show, he's pretty much retired. And we're sort of giving the Splinter Cell, seeing someone else, one of the agents being promoted. To me, Splinter Cell is almost like a James Bond type of character. You know what I'm saying? In this world. And I wasn't ready to see him hand the baton off or being, how would I say, having a Robin with him. You know what I'm saying?
So first off, Tom Clancy, growing up, loved the novels and the work. I am only sort of a peripheral, casual trafficker in the Splinter Cell gaming world, if you will. My impressions were really kind of just my personal impressions before I went through the reactions were really twofold. One is I thought the animation looked pretty good. I mean, you have more of a keen eye than I do, but I thought it looked pretty good. I enjoyed most of kind of how things were set up. I found the action a little John Wicky after a while, this is the guy who created John Wick, Derek Kolstad, who's behind the show. There was one shot in particular where the two of them, basically Sam and the guy he's fighting, go out the window of a high rise, drop like a ton of floors, land on the top of a car, roll off, and are basically fine and continue their fight. And I sort of was like, that's something I expect from the John Wick universe. I don't know that I expected it or needed it here. And so I kind of had that impression of, and then I guess, I was a little bit thrown for a loop because Liev Schreiber is the lead voice. He's Sam. But he, as you said, it kind of didn't seem like the lead character of the show in a lot of what I was watching. So I was getting a little bit thrown by like, who am I supposed to really be focused on? Is it the new kind of female agent, or Sam, who is the known character from the game? And again, maybe it's because I didn't finish the show, but you seem to be saying maybe it continues. It seemed like the show was almost uncertain as to like which lead they were supposed to really make number one. So I kind of, through the first half, I'm somewhat engaged, but I'm a little bit, I would say underwhelmed is strong, but I'm kind of in the middle. I'm sort of like, I'm watching, but I'm not, it hasn't gripped me yet.
Yeah.
They've already renewed it for a second season, and I don't know that I'm going to make it to a second season.
I'll give it a shot, but the disappointing part of a second season is that we're still continuing from this state of this is never say never again.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
That's how
so Bond, it's not Bond.
I see it, almost.
Yeah.
He's old. He's older. You know what I'm saying? I would have rather see some situations he's in his prime and let that be his beginning instead of near his end.
Here's the thing on the Reddits. There's two things that have stood out to me. This has not made a significant part of the fan base happy. The reviews are kind of mid for this. Critics are okay on it. Fans are less so. The two things that have come up, one is actually the point I made about the confusion about the leads. There are people who feel betrayed because Sam Fisher is not the centerpiece of the entire storytelling. And I will edit out some of there's people that are suspicious because this is a Netflix show of why that is the case. Okay. You can probably fill in the agenda stuff from there. The thing I thought was a little bit more that got my interest, because I haven't played the games in detail, but I am familiar with the concept. People were disappointed at the blocking of the action, arguing that in the game, you are much more of a stealth operator. That this is not a dude who, like, you shouldn't be engaging in like shootout after shootout after shootout all through buildings and through the streets. You should be in the shadows, and the kills should be meaningful, creative, almost more like the classic, like when Rambo's in the jungle or Rambo's in the swamp and he comes out of nowhere to dispatch the individual. There's a lot of people complaining that, like, when you play the game forces you into these clandestine situations where you can't shoot your way. You can't just shoot your way out. You have to smart your way out, and violence is a part of that. And so that's the biggest thing. People are like, this is too Hollywood action. Is this too much in the open, trying to get more explosions and gunplay off? That I thought was really interesting.
I think is almost like True Lies, in that you see Arnold Schwarzenegger work his way towards his objectives, and then you get the explosion and the chase and stuff like that. We got more of the explosion and the chase than the actual execution of how he was able to reach certain points, where now he has to sort of switch up his strategy on how to get himself out of this situation. But the best part of the game for me when I was playing it is those moments where he has to go on those missions. He can't kill anybody, and he has to remain in the dark. He has to be smart about how he's going to get to his next objective. He has to use tools. He has to use gadgets. These are the things that made this game exciting, and to me, it just felt like another. It didn't feel like Splinter Cell. We just had characters in this world that didn't really execute on those things that we loved while we were playing the game.
I think we're both kind of saying it's probably not the worst to watch, but we're not really telling you got to drop everything. Like, this ain't Blue Eye Samurai. You got to drop. You don't know how to drop everything and get to this show on Netflix.
Yeah. So you haven't Robert De Niro yet and blown it, but I don't know how you recover from this. The Jetsons. We talked about. Once again, we talked about this in our Fantastic Four review after seeing the film, of what an aesthetic like they were able to pull off there, how it would be for a Jetsons film. And now we have word that Jim Carrey is possibly going to sign up to play George Jetson. Brian, this is huge. The possibility here is even bigger with Jim Carrey as a performer, who is, I think, he's sort of, I put him in that same level as Robin Williams. And I think this is huge for that possibility. Listen, Heman, Jetsons now, John Hamm as Space Ghost should not be too far away.
That's just too easy. It's too easy. It's too easy. No. Too easy.
It is too easy. Your thoughts on?
I just think it's funny because we were seeing the look of this retro Fantastic Four leading up to it. You literally said this opens the door for a live action Jetsons movie, and here we are. Not 3 months after Fantastic Four came out, this movie is happening. Colin Trevorrow, who directed Jurassic World, is directing. and Jim Carrey is in talks to be George Jetson. And as you say, like quite an unexpected late career resurgence for Carrey, who I think found mainstream again with his portrayal of Robotnik in the Sonic movies that have been very well received, and now potentially becomes like a comic but sort of franchise IP leading man in George Jetson. And I think like on the one hand, you could say like, are the Jetsons too far removed from the mainstream to kind of recapture? But like, I think this can work. I mean, I think like we just saw the retro look, that was one of the best parts of Fantastic Four. Carrey still has that unique charisma and George, he's a good fit for George Jetson. Like if you go back and watch that old show, like from that era, like that character's got quirks and ticks, and like you need a guy who can kind of do some physical stuff with his face and with his hands and with his feet, because like it would make the character kind of move a little funny in that show, and it's the family and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
So I don't know how big they're going to budget this, but when I see Trevorrow's name and I see Carrey, it's like they're clearly handing out some checks for this. I think this, could. I mean, here's a question for you: Fantastic Four wound up being a box office disappointment at $500 million and change? Do you think a Jetsons live action movie with this structure could be a $500 million global movie?
It's not a superhero film. It's different. And it's based off an IP that people haven't seen in a long time. But, like all of us, whether it's in the future or in the past, everybody has problems, but it's going to be in this environment, in this era of the world in the future where, you know what I'm saying, where all this technology exists. We already saw a small piece or a small glimpse of what this would look like. You got the robot made. You got, you know what I'm saying? All the pieces are there. All you got to do is show it in a less superhero world and more of a regular day world in this world.
Yeah, I think what I have not seen is who's the writer, because I think this is one of those. Writing always matters, but like how to modernize this but keep the spirit of it, I think is going to be critical, because it is old fashioned, right? It is old fashioned, so you have to update it. But then someone who has seen the show, the animated show, has to walk into that live action movie and be like, I feel like I am in the Jetsons world.
Do you think it's a cross in terms of look between Back to the Future 2 and Fantastic Four?
Yeah, I think that's a pretty good place to start, for sure. Yeah.
Andy Muschietti. He responds to what people thought of the Flashpoint movie that he directed.
Oh.
What's the headline, Brian?
So he didn't really mince words. He said, let's see, the background was just reflecting on the movie, why it didn't perform well with fans or critics. And he said, no, we just moved on and understand that there's sometimes a headwind. Sometimes there's a headwind and a project you dedicated a lot of work to. We're very proud of it. And I think it's a very good movie, end quote, meaning the Flash movie. And then he said, then he gets a little more emotional, quote, a lot of people did not see it. But you know how things are these days. People don't see things, but they still like to talk bleep about it. They like to jump on bandwagons. They don't really know, and people are angry for reasons unrelated to these things, end quote.
Before I say something, what are some of the things that people remember Andy Muschietti in terms of directing as good films?
It's really It Chapter 1. It Chapter 1 is a set box office records for fall R-rated films. It is almost universally well regarded by critics and fans as one of the best Stephen King adaptations. The child actors he chose were fantastic. Bill Skarsgård as Pennywise gets a lot of buzz. So it's really Chapter 1. Chapter 2, which had the far bigger actors, James McAvoy, Jessica Chastain were involved in that. That was commercially successful, but kind of seen as a little bit of a letdown coming off of Chapter 1. But that's his claim to box office fame, is directing that for Warner Brothers. It's what got him the Flash assignment. And then, of course, the hype train. In fairness to him, he is not the one who called it one of the greatest superhero films ever made. That came from David Zaslav, and that came from James Gunn.
Yeah. Listen, I saw it, and I didn't hop on any bandwagon to say that it was what it was. It wasn't the greatest movie ever, one of the greatest movie ever made. There are moments, Brian, that are
Yeah.
for me, the Batman
Both
moments,
of them.
Affleck's and Keaton's. Ezra Miller's performance was never really universally liked by the majority. And his antics outside of it had nothing to do with the performance that he gave in Justice League. I was never a fan. So I was already going in with baggage. And it just continued. I wasn't really too fond of the special effects. I would have to say I was also over a bit
Yes.
of that storyline. I just didn't connect with the movie, and I didn't think it was good.
Quote, of course, we had a publicity crisis with Ezra, and that is undeniable. I'm not questioning that. But yeah, we love the movie, and actually, we really recommend it. I think my issue with the comment is more where he basically is like, this movie was doomed and trashed by people who didn't see it. I don't totally agree with that. I think that a lot of the flaws of this, again, some of the flaw of this movie is not about the movie itself. It's about the hype about it and about the fact that everyone knew it was a lame duck project, that it wasn't going anywhere because everyone was getting replaced, right? Those things are out of his control. But to your point, when you watch the movie,
Yeah.
the movie doesn't work ultimately, in my opinion, because the Flash doesn't work. And the Flash never worked because, honestly, this is one of the castings that Zack Snyder did not get right, in my view. And even if you could say Ezra Miller, whatever you think of him as an actor, what he chose to put into his iteration of Barry Allen, just I find grating, difficult to watch, and not heroic. And it just doesn't resonate at any point. Like, even, from the first time you see him, in sort of Justice League to the Zack Snyder Justice League, which fleshes it out quite a bit more, to his performance in The Flash, where you get more than one Ezra Miller, literally, it just never connects. And he's the weak link, because it's like Affleck in a small role is compelling. Keaton is still compelling with what he finds. Sasha Calle, to me, is a revelation. That's a win for Muschietti. He cast a really interesting Supergirl who has some interesting things to do. It's Miller. Like, Miller doesn't work.
Yeah, Miller doesn't work. And again, when I saw in Dawn of Justice the video clip from the store, and when we first see him, I was so interested to see what this Flash was going to be like. It was only after seeing the actual performance of Ezra Miller in Justice League is where I said, this is not what I had hoped it would be. And it never worked after that. So you're right. Flash didn't work. And because Flash didn't work, everything was, you can appreciate some of the attempts at certain things here. But for me, visually on certain things, it didn't work in terms of the Flash and his powers, and some of the special effects choices that they made here were just didn't work for me as well. But ultimately, again, the Flash himself didn't work, and so this movie is not people. I don't think for people who saw this movie is them talking, especially speaking for me.
No. That's the thing. Like,
there's no bandwagon.
It is a movie that, like, again, if it comes out in 2017 or 2018, probably makes double the money that it did. But I can't see a world where we're looking at it and hailing it as a classic interpretation of the character or the storyline.
That job at Batman, I don't think is really happening. It just hasn't been said yet, but we'll see. In our final segment, many people won't know his name. I didn't know it until it was announced, and I did some research. And when you think about
Mhm.
the posters that people see for movies, and there are creative people that put together these things. And this individual who recently passed away, rest in peace, Drew Struzan.
Drew Struzan. Yeah. Yeah.
Drew Struzan passed away recently, and he has been a part of movie posters that of movies that we've seen, classic films. Brian, if you have a list, could
Yeah,
you
sure. I think he rises to kind of truly elite fame because he did the posters for Star Wars. That's kind of where I think people first encountered his style of art. But he went on to do, any number of blockbusters that you would have been familiar with. So just to give you like a very quick short list. So every Star Wars film, Indiana Jones film, Harry Potter film, Blade Runner, E.T., The Shawshank Redemption. He wound up doing over 150 different film posters and had obviously he was a go-to poster creator for George Lucas and Steven Spielberg in particular. So you definitely have seen his work, even if you hadn't known his name. And he passed away this past week at age 78. It's one of those little things too. Like I don't know what it's like now for kids, like in college or like those early days where you live alone. But the movie poster used to be such a big part of. I remember like growing up, like what you put on your wall and what you put in your room when you went away to school. And so that's why I think like it is this piece of the glue in pop culture that you almost can't do without. And all of us have had, like even my kid now, like, has like a Star Wars poster and an MCU poster on her wall. Like growing up, she's had it growing, like, it's like I always had, and in college, I would cycle those out. I would have some and then I would change them out, get new ones. But yeah, I mean, a Star Wars one, I liked. There was one he did. It wasn't even like maybe the go-to one. There's the one of like Jake Lloyd walking away through the sand as a kid, but his shadow is Darth Vader's shadow. And that was a cool one, I thought, from the late 90s. But
the one I remember the most is the Phantom Menace one.
With all the characters on it, right?
Yes.
That's a good question whether he innovated it. He's certainly the one I associate with it, like the ensemble poster, because he wound up doing that for, like I said, like the Raiders of the Lost Ark, where Harrison's has the whip, that iconic way. He did that one, so.
But yeah, man, shout outs to him and condolences to his family and friends who knew him as a person. Again, I didn't know who was the, I guess, mastermind behind these classic posters, but he certainly left a mark for those individuals who do posters now and sort of use his work as inspiration for the new stuff, right? So yeah, let us know in the comment section. That's our show for The Void. Let us know in the comment section below what you guys think of all that's happening in these very different places, like He-Man, Jetsons. Tron is over, but could it work elsewhere, Brian? I don't know. Right now, I don't think nothing is over, but there's definitely a break. We're taking a break from this and see how because they haven't stopped with Star Wars. They keep going at it because of it's Star Wars, right? Tron never really reached that level, but they haven't been able to get it to the Star Wars level. So it's real easy right now to say we're done, but can they reinvent it in a different format? Let's see. We got Chris Nolan and The Rock possibly getting together on a project. Who knows what that could be as a movie for Chris Nolan, as a career move for The Rock. Splinter Cell, I don't know, man. Again, I wish it would have started in a different era of his career and using some of the pieces that made the game, as some of those other Reddit writers stated, in terms of what it was missing. I wish it would have gone that route. And yeah, let us know which is your favorite poster that Drew Struzan has or Struzan has created that you have perhaps even have. Let us know in the comment section below, and we'll see you next time. And did you like The Flash? Let me know in the comments. Did you like The Flash? The one with. Let me know what you liked and disliked about it in the comment section below. But yeah, we'll see you next time on the Nerd Report. Remember to hit that like and subscribe, and we'll see you.